Welcome to the Fate of Ukraine channel. Swords drawn. Before the first year of the war was over, the Russian fight between the USA and China increased the tension. Answering yes to the critical question, NATO's commander, Cavali, took a critical step. The world is carefully waiting for the end of the first year of Russia's attempt to attack Ukraine. It seems that a new offensive move on February 24, the year period of the war, will not come as a surprise. The international news agency Agence France-Presse directly reported what happened at the front. The Ukrainians are about to get their newest Western-made battle tanks because the tanks are on their way. As expected at Munich Security Conference in Germany, the main agenda was the war in Ukraine. American Vice President Kamala Harris also met with British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in Munich. In the joint statement made after the meeting of the two, it was stated that Russian leader Vladimir Putin was waging a global war. One of the remarkable meetings in Munich, where Russia was not invited this year, was between the USA and China. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in his meeting with Wang Yi, the important figure in China's foreign policy, warned Beijing administration very clearly about Russia this time. Reiterating that aiding Russia would have serious consequences, Blinken said the possibility of China providing logistical support to Russian forces is Washington's main concern. An American broadcaster announced that Washington suspects Beijing of providing military aid to Moscow. According to the exclusive report, China is already procuring equipment such as military uniforms or bulletproof vests for the Russian forces' spring offensive. According to NBC, which based its news on American sources, it is also thought that Beijing can offer powerful weapons to Moscow. Associated Press news channel said in a news it published during the week that China continues to be the biggest concern of United States. The U.S., which provides tens of billions of dollars of arms support to Ukraine, also stated that Beijing aims to control Taiwan by 2027. The war between Ukraine and Russia has been locked in the eastern Donbass key city of Bakhmut for months. NATO also announced that there are signs that Russia has started the spring offensive. Prepared for a new attack, Kyiv demanded the urgent supply of fighter jets from Western countries as well as tanks. Western countries, which have resisted sending tanks to the front line for months, have faced pressure from warplanes this time since the first weeks of 2023. Although U.S. leader Joe Biden ruled out the possibility of jet shipments to Ukraine by saying no, the plane business remains serious. American Politico stated that Christopher Cavali, the commander of NATO forces in Europe, is considering the delivery of F-16 warplanes to Ukraine. According to the news of Politico, which had a great impact, the NATO commander stated that F-16 jets could be dispatched so that the Ukrainian army could launch an attack. Asked whether F-16s, drones and long-range missiles would help Ukraine strengthen its air dominance and offensive operation, Christopher Cavali replied, yes. Politico stated that General Cavali made the aforementioned statement at a meeting in Munich attended by 10 U.S. senators and members of the House of Representatives. According to Politico, NATO commander's comment represents one step ahead of the views expressed by the United States in the issue of fighter jets to Ukraine, which has been discussed intensely for weeks. According to Politico magazine, the U.S. commander also said that with the long-range missiles to be provided, deep attacks that can hit the positions of the Russian soldiers can be carried out. The news magazine also told a group of U.S. congressmen that President Biden should deliver F-16s to Ukraine. Britain, the country that provided the most arms support to Ukraine after the USA, gave the green light to the fielding of warplanes against Russian troops. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said that they would gladly support other countries that will send fighter jets to Ukraine. According to Sunak, Britain is currently training Ukrainian pilots for NATO aircraft. Western countries, which decided to send high-level air defense systems, including the Patriot, to Ukraine before the end of 2022, broke another taboo in the first weeks of 2023. The USA and Germany announced to the world that they would send tanks to Ukraine on the same day. Germany's green light for Leopard tanks triggered Europe. Many countries from Norway to Spain, Poland to Finland and the Netherlands are preparing to send their Leopard tanks to Ukraine. There was another weapon in the U.S.'s latest weapons package that could outshine the HIMARS. Crimea, which Putin started to control in 2014, has entered the firing range with small-caliber land-launched bomb missiles, which can double the attack distance. Small-diameter bomb, launched from the land, with a range of up to 150 kilometers, can fire small-scale and precision-guided bombs at targets far from the ground. Bloomberg underlined that this is the first time the US has sent such a missile-like weapon abroad. Israel, which has only sent humanitarian aid to Ukraine since the beginning of the war, announced for the first time to send the Iron Dome air defense system to the Kyiv administration at the beginning of February. The bill paid to Russia by Vladimir Putin, who got stuck in the swamp in Ukraine, is getting heavier. American New York Times reported that 200,000 Russian soldiers were killed or wounded before the year was up. According to the newspaper, especially the battles in Bakhmut and Soledar significantly increased the losses of Russians. Russian troops have been trying for months to seize the key city of Bakhmut in Donbass, but they have not yet been able to break through the defense line of Ukraine. After the partial mobilization in September 2022, the troops sent to the war with a few weeks of training were driven to the front of the front. Hundreds of soldiers were lost every day on the Eastern Front, where the war had reached a dead end, and nearly 200,000 soldiers were disabled. The number quoted by New York Times is double 100,000 figure voiced by U.S. Chief of Staff Mark Milley a few months ago. The Institute of War Studies, which closely monitors the war, states that Putin, who lost 200,000 soldiers in less than a year, may declare a new mobilization. AFP news agency served up photos of soldiers training with real weapons in Putin's hometown of Petersburg. On the billboards in Petersburg, a photograph of a masked Russian soldier is accompanied by the message, "We will defend the motherland." It has been announced that the number of Russian soldiers who lost their lives during the war has increased by 5 times. It was announced that the number of Russian soldiers who lost their lives in the war in Ukraine increased 5 times in the first 2 weeks of February 2023, compared to the previous month. In the first 2 weeks of February alone, it was confirmed that 1,679 Russian soldiers lost their lives in Ukraine. It was recorded as the largest increase in the losses of the Russian army during the Russian attack attempt. The BBC, which keeps a list of the names of Russian soldiers who lost their lives in the war in Ukraine, together with Mediazona and a group of volunteers, announced the number of losses of Russian soldiers in Ukraine. Journalists examining the course of the war confirmed that as of February 17, 14,709 people had lost their lives. Military analysts also noted that the reports of disappearances cited by journalists are the most reliable source. For this reason, according to experts, it is stated that the Russians lost twice as much as the loss level claimed by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. In recent weeks, Russia has carried out indiscriminate airstrikes on parts of Ukraine. They were identified by Ukrainian authorities as Kupiansk, Krasny Lyman, Donetsk, and southern Donetsk region. As the anniversary of the war approaches, the Russian Air Force is likely to launch a major offensive. Moscow's latest Su-57s are also expected to play a major role in this wave of attacks. However, the Kremlin is quite afraid of the destruction of the Su-57s. Russia knows that if it loses any of its Su-57s, its brand value will drop incredibly. Therefore, in a possible air operation, Russian Su-57s will perhaps carry out attacks with cruise missiles without ever entering Ukraine. Military analysts also said that they expect the Kremlin to make a statement after Su-57s will attack without entering Ukraine. The analyst also stated that the Kremlin will praise the Su-57 as a result of the attacks. However, Kremlin Su-57s will be 300 kilometers from the front zone, so warplanes will not be able to see any combat. Thus, the Kremlin is expected to increase the brand value of Su-57s, albeit falsely. Kemezov, chairman of Russian state defense industry company Rostec, stated that Russia has increased the production of Kinzhal hypersonic missile complexes. Rostec president Sergei Kemezov told Russian Zvezda Plus television that Russia has increased the production of Kinzhal hypersonic missile complexes. We have come to the end of another video. You can like the video to support us. By subscribing, you can easily follow new videos. See you.